Our next guest is the head football coach at Archbishop Spalding. He's coming off a championship victory Saturday against McDonough, claiming the school's third straight MIAA title. He's also a former Terp himself, playing O-line in the early 2000s for Ralph Friesian. A lot to talk about with him, especially some Maryland commits a lot of people want to hear about. But first of all, we're so happy to have on Coach Kyle Schmitt this week. Kyle, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here.
Coach, let's just cut to the chase. Terp fans are excited about him. What makes Malik Washington special?
Yeah. Man, there's so much. So I'll give you a long answer because I read the comments, and I know the talk, and after even the weekend and the challenge that it was with Rutgers, I think Malik is really a transformational player. He was for me as a coach. There's a realization on Saturday night at about 9:30 that I'm back into the world that everyone, frankly, else in the football world lives in, other than maybe like Andy Reid and I don't know, Sean McDermott and a couple others, of like not having the super most high level quarterback of all time. I think we have some guys coming up the pipe; they're going to be really good, but he's a transformational player in a lot of ways. I think first, obviously on the field, Malik's always thrown the ball really well, but his legs became a real weapon. And frankly, we wanted to keep him healthy. We knew there'd be shots taken at him. We probably overprotected him in the run game, I would say. And he's a ferocious runner. Had our first touchdown the other night. He's a sick athlete. Anybody who's watched him play basketball, run the floor, dunk. I mean, he's not, when he played basketball, he wasn't like a perimeter guy who stood around and shot threes. I mean, like, he set screens. As it was actually Azar, the DB coach at Maryland now, he said he plays like Dennis Rodman. I was like, that's a nice comp, He did. He rebounded, he played hard, and he dunked. And Malik probably feels he has a little more skill than Rodman, but I thought that was fun to hear. So the athletic ability is really off the charts. I would add the football knowledge is, I think it's elite. He watches football like we all probably watch football. I could text him on probably Saturday night after we won a championship and said, "Man, are you watching Kansas BYU right now?" And he probably would say yes. He's a pure student of the game. He sees it, he watches it, he loves it. Like, you ask him questions about, I don't know, who played running back for the Georgia Bulldogs. That came up in our conversation recently. It was like we were just going through like 2000s college football players, and it was like, who was the running back tandem? And I knew it was Nick Chubb. I was like, who was the other guy? He's like, oh, Sonny Michel. Like, he knew that right off the top of his head, and because he studied it. And so he can name, like, he's the guy that we can sit there and bounce each other off, like who played where in college, and he knows them all. Probably my knowledge might go a little deeper than his, but back a few years, but he so that just shows me like he's a student, like he really cares. So many of the kids, frankly, other than what they're learning on Twitter and Instagram, I don't think they know the game particularly well. And then situationally, like, he takes a ton of pride in that. We had a drive on Saturday night. We call it slow the clock offense. We were up 24-7. And I told the guys, it's a championship drive right now. And we ate about 7 minutes off the clock, finished with a touchdown. And he understands, like, that's what it took. Every third down, he's looking at me for 2 plays or 1 play. Does he have third and fourth down to get the first? Or is it just, hey, we're punting if we don't get this? Or if he gets it under, like, gets it to 4th and 4, 4th and 3, we're going to go. Like, he has a real knowledge of that. He usually has to alert me that he's looking for it. He gets red zone football. He gets defensive football. Like, he understands we're going to punt in their zone sometimes. He doesn't complain and think he can get every first down. There were games this year where he threw the ball under 20 times. And we had, I think, the best quarterback on the East Coast. But the game plan was we didn't need to run the ball or throw the ball 40 times. We had the best defense in the state. We're going to choke people out. And Malik just wants to win. He believes his reputation, his legacy is going to be the W's, not the yards, not the touchdowns, not the players of the year. Those come with the winning, as we all know. But and then the last part I'll add is he's a tremendous connector. Like, he connects with so many people. Our admissions, one of our admissions, our associate admissions director, I was just speaking with her yesterday about him, and I mean, she just couldn't say enough good words. She spends a period a day with him in school because he is an intern there, and he represents our place. He's a Spalding guy through and through. Everything I want in a player from this program. He's really beloved by classmates and administrators and teachers, and we're going to miss him. We only got him for about a month and a half more, and yeah, it was a hug after we took him out, Saturday, that I knew it was going to happen, and I was looking forward to, but I was also dreading because it means I'm not his head coach anymore, and that's a tough pill to swallow. It's really, really, really fun coaching Malik Washington, and I'm just excited for the rest of the state to get to experience that.
I'm sure it feels good for you that, he's going to the college that you went to as well.
Yep.
Obviously, you broke down a bunch of different stuff there. If you have to circle and pick one attribute that you think will, translate in Malik's game from high school that will allow him to succeed in the college game, what would that one specific thing be?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, what translates to that? There's so many qualities. I think the ability to extend the play in today's game is really important. Defenses have become more and more creative. The exotics that you're going to get on third down are challenging, and having to call a perfect play with a quarterback that's maybe immobile, maybe a quarterback that doesn't understand defensive structure and the movement of a defense, that can become really painful for a play caller. And you see it. I don't have examples, right off the top of my head, but it's all over the NFL and college football today. Or the coordinator that has to call the perfect play, it's just not going to happen all the time. I think if you guys watch Chiefs Bills on Sunday, Josh Allen on the 4th and 2. I mean, that's a quarterback who took a play that was not the perfect play call. I think they were expecting man and they got zone, and he took it and made a play. So we had one the other night, a 4th and 3 with Malik, where it was sprint out right, then he took it all the way back across the field and got the first. It was a 4th and 7, sprint out right, and he took it all the way back and cut it back and got us the first. So that's the quality that I think head coaches in general, they cherish, because you're calling perfect play is a stressful way to live. It's a stressful way to game plan too. So to have a guy that can make plays with his arms and his legs, I think is big. But he can beat you in the pocket. That when you add that with it, it's not just dual. This dual threat becomes, frankly, the tag for guys that can't beat you. Can't beat man coverage throwing the ball. Can't beat pressure throwing the ball. Frankly, we saw a lot of what I think the really good quarterbacks are seeing in the upper levels the last couple of weeks. We saw like the drop 8 coverage with just 3-man pressure, where they tried to basically drop everybody and make him throw perfect passes. I think his accuracy is really good, but the extension of plays is definitely the best quality.
Yeah. So I guess kind of had some time now to process the championship win. 3rd straight for you guys. Just how are you feeling right now?
Great. I feel really good. I'm proud of our players and our school in general. We heard a lot of comments this season about we made it look easy, and that's awesome. It's a tremendous compliment, but it was really hard. It's really hard to do what we did. It's really hard all off season. We sometimes joke it took about 10 years to become an overnight success, and I'm in year 12 now at Spalding, and the last 3 have been really special. And honestly, 2021 was a special year too. We have guys like Kellen White, LeVan Scruggs were on that team. We didn't get it done. We lost to McDonough in the playoffs, but just really happy, really grateful, honestly, for the time. And it's a Tuesday at 4:00, and I'm sitting here talking to you guys when I'm usually walking out to practice right about now, just finishing up the special teams meeting. We'd be getting done with kickoff and kickoff return at the moment, and heading out to the field. But man, we're just really thrilled. I'm proud of our players, and I had great ones that I'm sure we'll talk about during this conversation. But it's a cool moment. Yeah, we've taken our program to kind of a mountaintop that, honestly, in my wildest dreams, I don't think I thought we'd get to. Top 10 in the country and number 1 in the state of Maryland was is somewhere that I wasn't sure we could get. But the right combination of people and a pretty diligent process got us there.
You guys definitely made it look easy. Obviously, you went a perfect 12-0. Saturday's game was the first touchdown you allowed since all the way back in August. Was there any thought heading into the season that you guys could run the table and go undefeated? Was that in your guys' minds?
No, I was scared we were going to get running clocked out in Ohio. To be honest with you, we went out there and I think it was kind of like, let's just see how it goes. We had went up to Don Bosco in 22 and played what at that time was a nationally ranked Don Bosco team with some really good players, and we kind of just sleptwalked through the first half. Weren't real sure if we belonged on the field with them, and ended up losing that game by about 20 points. So last year we lost to St. Joe Prep at our place 24-6. Lost up in a Motep in a close game. So there was this feeling of do we belong? And I think we watched the tape that week and felt good about our opportunities, but you're never sure. And honestly, preseason, a lot of people told me, we kind of were putting together a murderer's row with Hoban first and then DeMatha, Stepanek, who didn't have the team that they had in the past, but they, in the preseason looked really good. And then we started with McDonough and Calvert Hall in our league. So I was, I thought if we could be 4-1, even 3-2 after the first 5, we'd be in a really, good spot. And, to be up front, I think maybe halftime at Hoban is when we kind of all figured out, man, we can get this done. We're pretty good. And, Malik threw a couple touchdown passes to Miles McAfee. Our defense, which is always tough to run on, was extra tough against, a Hoban team that's playing in the state quarterfinals this weekend. And I think we realized it, on the bus ride home that, we had watched a little DeMatha and we didn't feel like we were going to be outclassed there either. So, I think early, and then the pressure quickly shifted to, now can you not let down? And that was a challenge, and it was tough throughout the year. But we just tried to really remain grateful for every opportunity. And there's a standard, and you have to play to the standard over and over and over again, every day in practice, every meeting, every day in the weight room, and that our players heard that a lot. So yeah, I don't. You never open up the schedule and say we're going to go 12-0, but after our early success, I think we thought maybe this was a possibility.
It is really hard to start as a true freshman. I think if you looked at the top 10 from last year, I want to say there's only one, Rayola, who started. And I'm not saying we don't know, what'll come next year, but what do you think will be the biggest challenge for Malik? Obviously, we hear a lot about what's so great with his game, but there's obviously parts that he has to work on, negatives. I mean, I think that you read scouting reports, but from a coach who coaches him all the time, being honest, what do you want to see him work on the most this offseason and when he gets to College Park that can kind of put him in position to maybe have a chance at the starting job next year?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I saw that question was asked in today's press conference, and that was definitely, I know it was probably structured around Malik coming into College Park.
Guy who asked that one.
I thought so, Sam. I saw it on Twitter. I wasn't sure, but so I think it's a great question. I think the first part is he'll get there early. He's going to be there in January, and having spring ball will frankly allow him to fail a little, because and it's easier to fail on a spring scrimmage on a Saturday morning than hopefully against I think it's FAU is game 1 next year maybe. So the ability to fail a bit in the spring will be good. I would say this, and this isn't. It's a knock. I mean, make the simple play every time, and I think will be for Malik. That will be the challenge. Those are things, and honestly, we had a conversation about the last 2 weeks, like carrying out fakes in the run game. We're a zone read team, and I caught him against St. Joe about 3 weeks ago, giving the football and stopping, and not carrying out and sprinting at the D end and making that guy pause his feet. Now the dive player, he was making the play on the dive when he shouldn't be, because the quarterback should be carrying the fake out. Moments like, throwing a 40-yard rope to Miles McAfee and then missing the hitch 2 plays later, or the key screen. And some of that's just slight lack of focus from time to time. And we put a lot on his plate, but Maryland's going to put a lot on his plate. So if not more, he's going to have to get a little more involved in protections and understanding mic points and things like that. Those are things that we don't get real heavy into at our level because of We don't see the exotic pressures that you're going to see from a Penn State or Michigan, and Rutgers. I'm sure this past weekend, not seeing the whole game, but knowing what Coach Schiano does on D, you're going to have to be a little more versed in that part of the game. And there's going to be some work to be done there, and I think that's where the spring will be big for him. We've done some. We could have done more with him from a protection standpoint. It wasn't totally necessary for us based on just what we see day to day at the high school level. But I think that's really the two areas that I would say the focus needs to be, is just his understanding of not so much the run game, but the protection piece and hot routes and sight adjust that maybe and not knowing every piece of coach's offense, but I'm sure there's some of that in it. And then doing the simple play just a little bit better. Some things that maybe you could get away with at our level that I don't think he will in the Big Ten.
You were asked about this Saturday, but there's been some talk in recent weeks that Michigan's been poking around trying to flip him. Do you want to just tell us again why those rumors are not true and he's loyal and sticking with the Terps?
Yeah, absolutely. Maryland offered Malik his freshman year. Coach I was sitting in a basketball game with Coach his sophomore year. Honestly, Brian Williams has been really, really a major part of it as well. He kind of has been the main recruiter of our school and our program for years. Malik is everything that exists in the world of college sports that we're all inundated with at the moment. He's just different than those kids. I really believe that. He's built a trust and a loyalty to this staff that I think he's extremely comfortable with them. And Malik wants to build a brand at home. And he's done a camp at our high school the last 2 years for kids local that's free. His family's here. He's got a younger brother and sister that are at everything. He's got two parents that are incredibly supportive and are at all of our games, amongst so much other family on both sides. We talked about it. We talked about the other schools reaching out, and I won't go into all of that. That's his business. But yeah, there were definitely calls from competitors, and I think it's my job. I love Maryland. It was great to me, but my job as a high school head coach is to just make sure our players are, they're aware of every opportunity they have. So we often talked about it. He's like, no, I'm not changing, Coach. This is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do. And he's not a kid that's going to be easily swayed by things. Malik Washington believes he's going to come into Maryland. He's going to make Maryland better, and he's going to help build it. Like, he believes that. And regardless of the outside noise and what the world wants to think and what everybody else wants to feel about Maryland at the moment at 4-6, man, Malik almost, he thrives in that moment. He just thrives in it. And a lot of people told me he should go to St. John's or DeMatha or McDonough or wherever else too. And, and he came to Spalding, and I think we accomplished some great things. So, he's going to be a Terp. He's told me that. I believe it. And obviously, unless something drastic happens here in the next 2 weeks, which I don't anticipate, I think, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be official.
Really quick, Coach. How involved were you in not only Malik's, but Jayden's and Delmar's, and especially over the recent weeks, we've seen kind of the rumors with the NIL process?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What can you say about the offers they were getting?
Yeah, not really at all. Yeah, to be really upfront with you, our job as the high school coach, like I always tell folks, I'm a football coach. I'm not an agent. I'm not a promoter by any means. For me, our advice to the players was, there's a lot of promises out there, but you're going to school and you're going to play football, and you got to go where you feel like that's the best place for you to succeed. I'm not involved in that process. I think that's a family decision. It's probably the part that we're probably all a little uncomfortable with as really college coaches, high school coaches, even families. I'm not sure who's always, working all these deals. We're here for advice. We've spoken to the families when necessary, but yeah, the last thing I'm going to do is advise these guys financially in any way. That's not my job. I am going to tell them where I think good situations are. We're gonna present coaches, and we're going to see where trust exists. And frankly, Maryland's done a great job building a relationship with our players, and they're around, they care, they give attention to their teammates. To be really upfront, that's something that's important to Malik too. Is some programs that want to swoop in and talk to Malik and kind of, I just think the way he did his commitment with Jayden and then Delmar a couple of days later just showed like what he's about. It wasn't all about him. And our guys, our opponents the other night have guys with offers from multiple different places and players that are ranked maybe higher in the state and on all the recruiting rankings. That burns inside our guys a little bit, don't get me wrong. And so schools did want to pop in and just recruit Malik and then don't really care about the rest of our players. That affected some decision making. I won't lie. Maryland's been really open with us. They've been honest to us about the guys that they can't take too. And I appreciate that about Maryland too. It's not, hey, bring him to camp and we'll see what he can do, or let's throw out an offer just to make the kid feel good. And nah, man, we don't want to build fake relationships like that. We want guys that if it's like you want this kid in your program, let us know. If you don't, we're not going to hold any ill will. If you don't want Trent Gillis who's going to the Naval Academy or Elijah Jones who's going to Northwestern, that's okay. It's not the right fit. We don't know if we want all of our DBs going to the same school to compete against each other. So yeah, that part of it, I'm really not. We're not heavily involved in it. That's for the families and the decisions for them to make.
Is there a moment that you remember, whether it was in practice or during a game, that you realized Malik was the one and he was going to help lead this program?
Yeah, it probably would have been his freshman year. Two parts. So his freshman year, we do workouts in the spring, and we're allowed 3 hours a week. And when he was an incoming freshman, so he was coming out of middle school, and we would have spring workouts on Saturday mornings. We'd do 2 hours so we can get our incoming freshmen there with our current players. And we sometimes will separate the young players from the old and here and there. And Malik walked in and went right over the varsity quarterbacks and just started chucking it and never looked back. That offseason, our defense was similar to this year. It wasn't quite as good from a points perspective. I think they gave up about 76 points that year. And Levan was on it, and Kellen, Mansour Delane, who's now at Virginia Tech at cornerback, and amongst a couple other, Tyler Brown is at JMU, and a few other really. Jayden was on that defense as a freshman. So just a really, really good group of guys. And Malik would just carve them up in practice. Now, he wasn't actually the starter. He was a freshman. Nick Gutierrez, who plays lacrosse now at UMBC, was our starting quarterback. But Malik would just carve them up, and he wouldn't be fazed by them. And those guys would talk trash, and they'd get on him and treat him like a freshman at times, in no bullying way, but just, they'd harass him. And he just wasn't fazed by it. And you saw it then. And then when we went up to Bosco that year and lost his first start, one of only three as a starter in his career. We lost the first one there, but the second half we scored 28 points. He threw the ball all over him, and you notice, okay, we got a ball player here, and he's going to be special. And he's never fazed by a pick. He's not fazed by trash talk. He actually thrives on it. So his demeanor is special. So those would be two moments for me where we kind of realized it. After we lost to McDonough his freshman year, he did play late in that game. We inserted him, and he told our offense coordinator, Anthony Messenger, he said, I'm never losing McDonough again. And he went 6-0 against him the next 3 years, which was pretty cool.
We've mentioned two other guys from your roster going to Maryland, Jayden Shipps playing cornerback and Delmar White on the D-line. What do you think those two guys specifically will bring to the Maryland team?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with Jayden, 4-year starter. I think his defensive versatility is really big. I think in today's day and age where you have obviously corners, safeties, nickels, Jayden can play multiple spots in the secondary. And I think that was really valuable for him. That's why he was so heavily recruited, is his ability to do that because he's a tackler. He's not afraid to cover, but he'll tackle. And the boundary corners, are valuable in that regard because they can tackle. And I think he's got a shot to play really any of the spots in the secondary. And I know that was valued a lot. And then obviously his experience and time spent playing at a really high level. There's a ton of reps, not a lot of tread, but a lot of reps on him. And that just showed. And length is, you have to be long to play in the secondary, especially the Big Ten. And Jayden has that. So it allows him to match up with what are inevitably going to be really big receivers. And so that makes him, I think, a perfect fit for the secondary at Maryland. Delmar he's the strongest high school kid I've ever been around. He's a total sleeper. I'd frankly, and no knock on some of the programs that came in. Some guys thought maybe he's too short, maybe his arms weren't long enough. I mean, he's a wrecking ball. He's going to be a 500-pound bencher. He'll be one of the strongest guys in Maryland's program. And he was a terror. He wrecked practice all year. He wrecked games all year. He's going to be a major problem. Wrestlers are great D linemen. And he is so green. He's so green. He played basically 2 years of football before he got to Spalding. He did transfer from Chesapeake High School. And, man, I'm really excited to watch him at the next level. He's going to be a problem. I think he's an inside guy, a nose or a three technique. And he's going to create a lot of havoc, and you need that to stop the run at that level. In the Big Ten, where he's going to see monsters. We all know that on the other side of the ball. And I think he's going to provide great depth and energy at that position. And you got to have big guys to win in college football today, and he's going to bring it. And they're great kids. They're super easy to coach, beloved at our place. Maryland's getting three winners.
And then last question, obviously, when you were playing for Maryland, Coach Locks was there too from 2001, 2002. What do you remember from Coach Loxley all the way back then? And do you have a favorite story from that time?
Definitely relationships, for sure. Locks is just a relationship guy, remembers everybody, knew everybody in the team. He coached running backs, but he recruited so many of us. So he was a guy that knew the whole roster. And so roster building was certainly a part of his DNA early on. And just a connection, the ability to connect with every player, really in the program on something, whether it was me from Western PA in the country or the guys from DC and we're total different backgrounds. And I think Locks was a massive catalyst in Ralph's early success. I think a lot of us felt that. I mean, early story, honestly, was my official visit in 1999. You guys probably weren't even born then, but he came. I remember being on that. My parents went back to the hotel bar and that night, and Locks, being the recruiter that he is, spent the evening with him. I'm sure it wasn't early when they went to bed, and my parents, that still resonates with them 25 years later. Was just his kind of care and connection on that trip. Still remember my parents. Locks came and saw us. He saw us play last year in person and went over and said hello to my parents. I mean, it was pretty genuine, and I felt that, and I think that's been a strength of his for a long, long time. And to kind of remember that time, and my parents, we were drinking Rolling Rock beer at the time. That we were from Latrobe, PA, and that was, I don't know if they drink that in college anymore, but you guys, that was something that my parents remembered and brought back up and brought him a case of that at some point for his fridge. So that was just a cool memory for our family that there was that care and connection in him as a coach and somebody who was going to go play for him at Maryland.
We've asked you a bunch of questions, so thank you so much, Coach, for your time. I got one more quick one before
sure,
we
Sam.
go out. If you had to tell us what these three guys that are coming to Maryland, how confident are you, especially the one at quarterback, just because of the impact of the position? How confident are you that 3 years from now we're going to be looking at them as kind of leaving a legacy beyond just hometown kids, changing the program?
Yeah.
I mean, you see with Indiana how quickly it can turn.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, college football, that's one thing I was thinking about before coming on with you guys. College football is so different right now. where you have to rebuild the roster every year, and there's going to be probably more inconsistency in seasons than ever, good and bad. These guys, much like the players that are there at the moment, Kellen and Levan and Keyshawn Flowers, amongst others, like I just feel like they're prepared, they're hard, and they're a little calloused. They've been coached hard. There's no, I mean, Jayden was getting ripped in the fourth quarter, Friday night over a mishap in the secondary by our defense coordinator, Tyrone Forby, who's been incredibly instrumental in their time and their connection with Maryland as well. I think they're ready, and there's hurdles, as we all know, whether it's obviously injury, playing time, challenges, but from a persistence standpoint, which this is what college football is right now, you got to be incredibly persistent, resilient, and it's a battle of attrition, whether it's transfers coming in, transfers leaving. I don't think these guys will blink at all, and I don't think they'll blink over struggle either. They didn't fail a lot at Spalding, but they were prepared for it, and I feel like one thing Coach is going through at the moment is you got to be able to figure out who you can lose with first, because that's where they're at right now. And you got to figure out who's all in on the program. And I think these guys will be through the, even our guys that are there now. I mean, we never even had a slightest conversation about jumping ship despite some struggles. That's not in our DNA at Spalding. I mean, they're ready to kind of pick up the pieces and keep this going. Hopefully get 2 here and get to a bowl game. But I think those players will be part of that core. They're not going to be amongst the fringe, those fringe players that are kind of like dipping their toe in and seeing if this is what's right for them. I think they're going to be a part of the core that hopefully gets this group over the top here in the next few years.
Really subtle but powerful flex there. They didn't fail a lot at Spalding. I see you there, Coach.
We have failed a lot at Spalding, just that they weren't here yet.
I love it. Thanks so much, Coach Schmitt. We really appreciate your time, and congratulations again on another successful season. And hopefully we get to talk to you in the future.